Welcome back to Colts Law. I'm Lawrence Owen. With me, as usual, is my guy, Colts Loyalist. And today we are continuing our AFC breakdown, moving on to the AFC North. Today we're going to break down the Ravens with our guy, Ingraven. What's going on, man?
Hey, what's going on? Appreciate you having me on.
I appreciate you too. Before we get started, why don't you go ahead, take a moment, let people know this is generally a Colts channel, even though I cover the entire NFL. They might not know who you are. Let them know who you are and where they can find you.
Oh, well, I'm Ingraven from Ingraven Vids. That's the name of my YouTube channel. Also Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all of that good stuff. Well, we talk Ravens like 24/7. We have videos every single day. And we do also cover the entire NFL. It is 99% Ravens, but we just talk football on there in general. So everybody's welcome, whether you're a fan of the Ravens or not. And it's Team Keep It Clean, so it's a channel that's for everybody.
Man, you sound just like me, only our channel, except you cover the Ravens, we cover the Colts. So this should be great. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Obviously, last season was injury riddled, and it really affected the Ravens a ton. This season, we're hoping for something a little bit different, right? Maybe a healthy Lamar, healthy running back room, stuff like that.
Just a healthy everything. That's the biggest turnaround that the Ravens could really hope for is health, because that is what absolutely destroyed them. And they fought. I give it to them because they fought. They fought really, really hard. Because health was destroying them before the season even started. But before the preseason even started, guys were going down left and right. So literally, like every single week throughout the entire season, there was somebody new. And then even we would get some guys back, and then somebody else, they would go down too. So we're just hoping that guys will be healthy this season. And with a lot of guys that are returning too, that they'll be fully ready to go. Because there were a few guys that came back a little bit too early, like Ronnie Stanley. There was Derek Wolfe. There was Nick Boyle. And even Patrick Ricard toward the end of the season. There was times when these guys, they would have gotten hurt, then they came back, but they just weren't healthy. They weren't 100% healthy. So they end up getting even more hurt, and that forced them to miss more time. So health is a huge factor moving forward for the Ravens.
Well, now that the off season for this year is over and we're heading into training camp here in the next couple weeks, let's take a quick look at their depth chart. And one of the big things that the Ravens and fans of the Ravens have always said was we need to get better receivers. And I'm looking here. What happened?
Oh man, this is I feel like the Ravens this offseason, they did so much, and they did a really good job of building up this roster, a really good job of building the depth at so many different positions on their roster. But my only issue is, like you mentioned, the wide receiver. That's my only holdup. That's the one position where I'm just like, I don't know about it yet. Rashad Bateman, their first round pick from last year, he looks the part. He still, of course, has to prove it and with consistency, but he looks the part. But after him, it's just a lot of question marks. You have a third year Devin Duvernay, a third year James Prochet, a second year Tylan Wallace, who if I had to go give somebody who I see having the most promise moving forward, besides Rashad Bateman, out of that receiver room, it would probably be Tylan Wallace. But still, just so many unknowns there. And then we just have a lot of undrafted rookie free agents at the receiver position. So I'm not 100% sold on the Ravens receivers right now. Hopefully they prove me wrong, but I do expect the Ravens to still make a move there for a veteran. I would love if they got like somebody still in their prime, but that's just not really the Ravens' way. So I would expect them to get one of the free agent wide receivers that are still out there, maybe like a Julio. I'm not really, no offense, guys, but I'm not really a big T.Y. Hilton fan. So I wouldn't want them to get T.Y. Odell, they could get him, but he wouldn't be a contributor till later on down the road. So, but I just don't know what they're gonna do there. But I'm just not sold on the option that they have there right now.
So They didn't like go without at least going towards the offense in the draft. First round pick Tyler Lindenbaum at center. Give me a little breakdown on this first round pick that they selected on the offensive line.
Oh man, the Ravens they've had issues at center for the longest, and really the offensive line as a whole. But they just been lacking that consistency at the center position. A couple of years ago, Lamar Jackson, the MVP season. Matt Skura, he was the Ravens starting center. He was doing a phenomenal job. Then the game, it was a Monday Night Football game against the Rams. He got hurt. He tore his ACL, PCL, MCL, tore a bunch of stuff in his leg. So he was out for the season. And then Patrick McCary, who was an undrafted rookie free agent at the time, he stepped in and filled in for Matt Skura as center. So Patrick McCary, he did pretty good. And then Matt Skura came back the following year, but Matt Skura was not the same player that he once was. He was having a lot of issues snapping the ball in 2020. And then he was just, you could tell he just was not healthy. He was not all the way back to himself. Then Patrick McCary, he stepped in for Matt Skura. And Patrick McCary, his was the infamous snap in the Buffalo Bills game, in the playoff game, where it went over Lamar's head. Lamar had to go run and get it. Lamar picks up the ball, throws it away, but a Bills player whacks him. He lands on his head, gets a concussion, gets knocked out of the playoff game. So then last year in 2021, at center, it was a mix. It was a little bit of Patrick McCary, it was a little bit of Tristan Colon Castillo. It was inconsistency though. That was the bottom line. There was a lot of inconsistency. So the Ravens, they made a smart move, and they had Bradley Bozeman there for a lot of last year too. But that was his first year in the NFL playing center because they had always had him at guard. He did play center in college, but for his first 3 years in the NFL, he was at guard. So with Bradley Bozeman, he left as a free agent. He went and signed with the Panthers. So the Ravens had a void at center. So what better way to fill it than to have somebody who's been playing the position and who was the best center coming out of college in Tyler Lindenbaum. And with that move, I really liked it because it gives Lamar Jackson somebody who can be relied upon to play center, somebody who's been doing it, not just somebody who you just have to throw in the mix all of a sudden, but it's somebody that's been in the mix throughout his collegiate career. So I really like that draft pick.
I actually like that draft pick a lot as well, considering the style of offense that the Ravens utilize. You know, the center quarterback exchange is so important in that specific style of offense. So you might as well go out and get the best that you can because that's everything. Chuck, do you have any questions?
Oh, yeah, I just because the NFL's got to figure out. I know the Ravens create the environment for success, but they crush it in the draft. I mean, they just absolutely crush it year in, year out, you know. And honestly, you look at this draft, you know, Tyler Lindenbaum. I'm a Notre Dame fan, so, you know, I'm absolutely ecstatic with your safety choice. You know, these two young men are just so, I mean, contributors day one, you know what I mean? And you sit there and it's just ridiculous how this draft fell for you guys. You know, Kyle Hamilton, I think, is just going to be a game changer for you guys. You know, I think he's going to help solidify your secondary. But the thing I got to ask, man, in our Discord, you know, we do a deep dive during the draft season and stuff. What was round 4 like for you guys? 6 picks going in. You're like, oh, is he going to – I mean, talk about Christmas. I mean, you know, like I said, you look at Falele and just all this talent that you got just in the 4th round alone. I mean, a lot of teams would be happy with that haul just in the regular draft, let alone just in one round.
When going into the draft, the Ravens, they had 10 picks. And I consistently tell people there's no way that the Ravens are picking 10 players. It's not going to happen. They're going to trade around. They're going to move around. They're going to move up in some round. There's no way they're picking 10 people. But the Ravens, they were like, you know what? No, we're going to prove him wrong and some because we're taking 11 players. So then when the 4th round was coming up and you kept hearing, oh, Ravens have 6 4th-round picks. So, oh, that's a record. I'm like, okay, yeah, they have that, but there's no way that these Ravens are going to take 6 players in the fourth. They're not doing that. They're trading them, moving around. Nope, Ravens did it. And with the fourth round, and just really the draft as a whole, I feel like they did a really, really good job of filling like a lot of different holes and getting a lot of different quality depth in different areas. One of the picks that stood out to me, but it was kind of like a not necessarily a warning, but I guess sort of a what's the word I'm looking for? I guess just letting everybody know was the punter, Jordan Stout, that they drafted. When they drafted him, it was like, okay, well, I guess we see the writing on the wall because Sam Cook must be getting ready to either get cut or retire. And then, of course, shortly after, Sam Cook, the Ravens punter he's been punting for them for forever, he ended up retiring. So it was like, okay, so they feel that, and they must have had conversation with him prior to by them selecting a punter. So they were just staying ready so they didn't have to get ready. They drafted the corners, of course, you mentioned Falele, a developmental offensive lineman. So they covered a lot, and then the tight ends too. So they have like just so much depth and so much quality depth, and guys that are not necessarily, well, besides the punter, he'll be called on right away, but guys that won't necessarily have to be starters, but guys that'll give you good quality at several different positions and good depth at several different positions. So it's so good to stack depth. And I think Ravens last year, if they learned anything from last year, is that you have to have good depth, because if you don't, things will get ugly quick.
Absolutely. Trust us, we understand that situation all too well. We didn't have a secondary going into the fourth quarter against the Ravens last year. So and Lamar Jackson and your team took advantage of that and won in overtime with that. So yeah, absolutely. We completely understand. I'm looking at your defense here. Defense, very well known. Just like many of the teams, like the Steelers and such, in that AFC North, of being very aggressive, very good defensive players. I'm looking here. I'm seeing not just a couple fourth round picks. I see a first round, a second round, and a third round pick going into this year's draft. Which of those do you think will probably have the most playing time? Because I'm looking on the depth chart, and on this depth chart, as you talked about, they're all, behind somebody else. Who do you think is going to have the biggest impact on this defense?
The biggest impact, since you always hear that it's such a passing league. Passing league is a passing league. I would say Kyle Hamilton, because Kyle Hamilton, him being the first round draft pick, they're going to want to get him on the field like a lot. And they're not going to want to take him off the field. And so I could see them having, as long as they keep Chuck Clark, who's their starting safety right now, I could see them having a lot of 3 safety packages just to ensure that Kyle Hamilton stays out there. They're going to move him around. I'm sure they'll have him dropping back. They'll have him in the box. They'll have him doing different things. But I think it'll definitely be him.
Awesome. Yeah, without trying to turn this into Kyle Hamilton show, you're gonna love the way this young man just covers the field. I mean, he's that long, rangy guy, but man, he can cover something special.
Hey guys, please smash that like button, hit subscribe if you're not subscribed, and tag that notification bell so that you're notified next time I go live. Don't forget, you can also share this video to your favorite social media, and please open up that description of the video. In there, you find a link to my Patreon, which is only $5 a month. Get all of my content plus Patreon specific content, and of course my merch shop right here.
I'm excited to hear it, man. I can't wait. That should be good.
So let's jump into the schedule real quick, kind of look a little bit about some of the games that they are going to have this year. Obviously they start off preseason, only 3 preseason games this year. They'll be hosting the Titans, then they'll be heading to Arizona, and then they'll be hosting the Commanders. Any of these 3 games interest you?
Really all of them. I enjoy preseason because you get to see a lot of guys that you wouldn't normally see the majority on Sundays. And you get to see guys' ability. And I know some people say, oh, don't get too hype. It's just the preseason. Like if a guy's doing really good, the way that I look at it is like, okay, well, if the guy was doing really bad, then that'd be a whole nother conversation. But if he's doing good in the preseason, then that's a great way to start off his career and a good way to build some confidence for him moving forward into the regular season and for him to establish himself on the team, for him making the initial 53-man roster and then wherever his spot on the depth chart would land. So I'll be watching all the preseason games for sure. Nothing in particular. I know with the Ravens playing the Cardinals, they did trade Hollywood Brown, their 2019 first round pick at receiver, to the Cardinals, but I'm sure that he probably won't play in that game. But it'll just be fun to see that the players and him chopping it up. But nothing in particular with the preseason.
Well, with the okay, I like preseason because it gets us a chance to look at our rookies, right? That's the one thing, because you don't know what your rookies are going to look like walking into the NFL, and preseason games are huge for them. And you talk about don't know what the receiving core is going to really look like. You walk into the preseason right off the bat against the Titans. They have a stout defense over there. That'll be a good test for the wide receiving core, I believe.
Now, another thing with that, not even just the receiving core, but just the team in general, I do wonder how much, if any, that they'll play their starters in the preseason. I'm sure the starters will get a little bit, but I just wonder how much it'll be. Because last year in the preseason, that's when they lost J.K. Dobbins. It was in the third week of the preseason, so the last game, it was against the Washington Commanders, I believe. But it was on the first drive of the game. The very first drive of the game, it was on a third down on a screenplay. Our starting center missed a block. The tackler went, hit JK, and boom, ACL done for the year. So I wonder how much of an impact last season will have on them playing starters in the preseason.
That's an interesting thought right there. Heading in, let's actually get this fully extended here. Week 1, can't start week 1 off any tougher than this game right here.
Hey, I mean, it's any given Sunday. They can't look past anybody, and we've seen it time and time again, to where like week 1, a lot of crazy stuff can happen in the NFL, as you all know. So with week 1, we've seen it to where some team can come out looking hot, some team can come out looking like, oh man, this team is going to be doing something this year. And then week 2 and week 3 come around, and it's like, oh, okay, well, never mind, we were wrong. So with the Jets, I'm not sure the Ravens will be focused and all that, but they can't take anybody lightly, even the Jets, because I know a lot of people are overlooking this game, like, oh yeah, the Ravens gonna crush the Jets, but you never know. So I just hope that they stay on it and they take care of business.
This is just phenomenal to me. You play the AFC East this year, and your first 4 games of the year is against all 4 of the AFC East. You get that out of the way right now. That is crazy.
Yeah.
Which of these 4 games stands out biggest to you? The first
4. I'm super excited for that Ravens and Dolphins game. And then the Ravens and Bills game, to really all of them, but definitely first Ravens and Dolphins, because the Dolphins, they beat the Ravens down last year. That game was ugly. The offense could not do anything. They were just out there lifeless. The Dolphins, they took advantage of them. So I'm just looking to see how, not even as a revenge game, because the season's over, it's done with, this is a brand new season, but with the Dolphins, with all of their additions, especially a Tyreek Hill, and he is a problem, but Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle on the same team at the same time with Mike Gesicki, I'm really excited to see how the Ravens work on containing those guys. And not giving up the big plays, because that was an issue for the Ravens last year. Now, injuries did play a huge part in that, with them giving up so many big plays, because there were a lot of guys that just weren't supposed to be out there, but they were forced out there due to the starters being hurt. So it messed up a lot with communication. So I just want to see how Ravens can respond to counter giving up those big plays, especially against those big play threats.
Chuck, I'm going to throw the question to you, but it's going to be through the first half of the season because after the AFC East, they're going to host the Bengals, then visit the Giants, host the Browns, and then go to Tampa Bay. Of the first 8 games, the first 2 months of this year, Loyalist, which game are you most excited to see the Ravens play?
Honestly, for me, it's the Ravens and the Bills because that is a game I think we're going to get a lot of information from for the season. What does Buffalo look like against stiff competition? What does the Ravens look like again? I mean, these two teams they're heavyweight, challengers, and the thing is either one of these teams could be considered one of the top teams in the AFC. And I understand the AFC West has got all the glitz and glamour, but I mean. Me personally, no offense meant to the Ravens, but I like the Bills, just because their passing game is, like you said, this is a passing league. Their passing game is really solidified, and that's the question mark that I have with the Ravens. Their run game's dynamic. The way Lamar Jackson and that organization has built things around him, and it's special to see, and that first year, it was like the league was caught off guard. They're like, I don't know why, because Lamar had showed it through his whole collegiate career, but you guys just caught everybody off guard. And even now, 2-3 years into this, everybody realizes what Lamar has, but still, it's like us with the Jonathan Taylor. Yeah, you know what JT is, but can you stop it? Same with Lamar. You know what Lamar is, but can you stop him? Because his running of the ball is amazing. And if they could just like last year, didn't you guys start picking up the passing game and stuff?
Oh yeah,
before the injury.
They sure did.
So if they could start off there, I think by the time we get to this Bills game in October 2nd, I think that could be electric.
Of the second month of those 4 games in the second month of the season, which game are you most looking forward to? What's the biggest game here for you, Ingraven?
Probably the Bills game. That'll be a really good. Really, the Bengals. I guess all 3 Bs: Bills, Bengals, and Bucks, because those are some real benchmark games. With the Bills, you got the 2018 first round picks going at it, and of course the quarterbacks don't actually go against each other, but it's more fun to say it that way. But that and the Bills are a team. I love how they continue to build their roster. Josh Allen first year, they were like, we don't know about him. The second year, they were like, then they were like, you know what? Let's give Josh Allen no excuses at all. Stephon Diggs, come here. And then we saw Josh Allen skyrocket. We saw him take off. And I love how they just continue to build around both offense and defense now. You see what they just did with Von Miller today. They signed him to that crazy deal, even though it's not everything that it looks like it is. With these deals, they are worth up to. But I just love how they just continue to try to build the best team that they can possibly build. So that should be fun. Then you got the other B team, the Bengals, just went to the Super Bowl last year. And the way that they built their team, they of course, it did take a lot of losing because they had a lot of top picks and whatnot. But now they had the 31st pick. And they went and through free agency and whatnot, they built up that offensive line. So for them to do everything that they were able to do last year, to make it all the way to the Super Bowl with probably the worst offensive line in football, and if not the worst, then one of the worst. But yeah, no, Joey B was sacked the most times last year. So yeah, the worst offensive line in football. For them to make it to the Super Bowl, and now they built that up. They tried to turn one of their weaknesses into a strength. It's going to be nice to see how the Ravens stack up with them, and especially with health as well. And then the Bucks, who a lot of people feel like could represent the NFC in the Super Bowl this year once again, and going against Tom Brady, Mike Evans, just all the weapons that they have over there is going to be nice to see how they stack up against him. So those are the games that I would probably be looking forward to the most, those 3 Bs.
All right. No Browns. That's a B team, but no Browns. That's what I take out of that conversation right there.
Now, if they have Deshaun Watson, that may be a more interesting game. But
that is true. But at that point, maybe not. Heading into the third month, we got November 7th. Ravens heading to the Saints. Then the Panthers head to the Ravens. Then the Ravens head to Jacksonville. And then another B team that has really, got people looking around, the Broncos of that month. Boy, what are you looking for?
Oof, it's that's tough. That's tough. Because with the Saints, and hopefully Jameson Winston, he can stay healthy this year. And there won't be any setbacks, anything like that. But you just have a lot of unknown, because you can look at the Panthers and feel like, all right, whether it's Baker Mayfield or Sam Darnold, or it's probably gonna be Baker, but we'll see. But whoever the quarterback is, you just feel like they're gonna be a bad team. And with Jaguars, you feel like they may not quite be there yet, but you just never know. So again, just the same thing we were saying about the Jets. I just don't want them to overlook any of these teams. And then you have the teams that are expected to be good with the Broncos, who they were just, it just felt like they were always a quarterback away over the last couple of years, and now they have Russell Wilson. So that should be a really tough, good, fun game. And then the Steelers and Ravens. It doesn't matter who's playing, who's at quarterback, who's at running back, receiver, whatever. Doesn't matter, because those games are always tough. Those games are always just really hardcore, man. Between Ravens and Steelers, and you can throw, whenever those two go up against each other, you can throw all the records out the window, or whatever their current standing is, because it's usually gonna be close. So yes, Ravens have a tough schedule.
Man, that Steelers game is like, because when you think of Ravens Steelers, and that's a game that I always loved. I actually said, unless the Colts are playing someone big and they're playing at the same time, if that game comes on and I have the opportunity, I watch it. I'll go back and watch it later, because that is always guaranteed to be a good game. And it's old style football. It's that gritty, in your face defense, run the ball, that type of style game that I just absolutely love and have been what got me into football in the first place. You talked about the Steelers finishing off the season. The Ravens go to the Browns. The Falcons then come to Baltimore. Then the second game where the Ravens host the Steelers, and then they travel to Cincy. Loyalist of the last half of the season. What's your favorite game to watch?
Well, there again, unlike you, those Ravens Steelers games are just like, I mean, football. You're going to get good coaching. You're going to get tough games. But for me, I really do look at that Bengals game. What is this Ravens defense able to do against Joe Burrow and that offense? Because I think that the Ravens offense is going to be able to eat, all day against the Bengals. Like I said, I think the Bengals defense it improved last year, but I still think that there's more improvement needed. But what can the Ravens defense do against that offense? That's the big question in that Bengals game.
And the last month, Ingraven, what's the go-to game for you?
Really just the Bengals, with that being the last game of the season, and just really seeing how they finish off in the division, because you had the Steelers and Browns in there as well, and it's going to be really, really important for them to finish strong. Hopefully they'll start strong and finish strong, but it's really, really important that they hopefully go into the postseason making a strong push, because that, hey, who knows, that last game of the season, it could be for the division. It could be. And I mean, as a Ravens fan, I would hope that they would have taken care of business by then and sealed up the division. But it's AFC North, so I wouldn't even expect it to be like that. I expect all the drama. I expect all the last second efforts to win a division from maybe all four teams, because I feel like, especially depending on what happens with the whole Deshaun Watson thing, we'll see. But depending on what happens with that, I can see all four of them really fighting for it. I know a lot of people are really sleeping on the Steelers right now, feeling like the Steelers, oh no, they're not going to do anything special. But I can't count the Steelers out of anything. So yeah, I just really want to see at the end of the season, how the Ravens clean up things and how they finish off, and as long as they can finish strong.
Speaking of finish strong, it is time for us, as we come to the end of this video, to talk about our ceiling and floor and why we have that for our record prediction for the Baltimore Ravens. Me personally, there's two factors that go into this. Now, obviously, you talked about the schedule. It is a tough schedule, especially when any team that plays in the AFC North, it's going to be a tough schedule anyhow, let alone the fact that you're also facing that East team, the AFC East, which I think all four of those teams also improved this past offseason. Buffalo looked at as possibly the best team in the NFL at this point by many analysts. But if the Ravens can stay healthy this year, which is a huge key, and they can find two guys on the offense that Lamar Jackson can get comfortable with and trust when it's time to, throw the football, because you can't run the ball 24/7 throughout a game. I feel like if they can do those two things, I think that their ceiling is quite high. I think even with that tough schedule, I do not see where they could not reach a 12-win season, 13-win season even, right? But at the same time, the schedule is brutal. And if some of these guys don't work out the way that you're hoping that they're going to work out, I don't know. I can't bet against Harbaugh and the group that he's got around him, though. So even if some things happen, I don't see him losing more than 9. So I'm looking at a floor of 9 this year for the Ravens myself, and then a ceiling of somewhere around 12 or 13. Loyalist, where are you sitting at?
Yeah, well, you were talking about finding somebody comfortable with, we haven't talked about it, but Mark Andrews, Mark Andrews has really worked out. But what is that depth at that tight end? Can one of those guys step up so they can run the 2 tight end set and stuff? That'd be an interesting question to see get answered early in the season. And then you sit there and you throw the Deshaun Watson. I mean, he's a wild card in 2 games, for you guys. So does he play? And if he plays, what's he going to look like after the year off? But I mean, I don't even know that I could go for a floor of 9, and I'm pretty critical on the floor, generally speaking. I think 10 would be my floor for this Ravens team, and I honestly believe 14, 15, and
wow.
That's, I mean, yeah, for that to happen, I mean, there's going to have to be some teams that don't perform to the level, like do the Bengals fall off, because last year what they did was pretty spectacular. I mean, I don't think anybody predicted them making it to the Super Bowl. Now, if they can, continue that, yes. But if they regress or if the league gets wise to some of the things that they were doing and be able to take some of that away, I could see that, like I said, the ceiling being 14, 15 wins.
For me, I would say the ceiling for wins, I would say 13. Them going 13-4 would be the ceiling. Because there's always a couple of games every year where the Ravens just they blunder them. So I would say that would be the ceiling for me, 13. It'd be nice to go even higher. So if they break through that ceiling, hey, no problem. But then the floor for them, as long as they're healthy, say maybe about 10, 11 wins. If they went 10-7 or 11-6, somewhere around there. And because something like that, you mess around and that keep you out of the playoffs, especially depending on how the division is and how the conference is as a whole. So I think health, like we talked about earlier, health is so much. But also, of course, coaching and execution and the decision making would be as well.
All right. Well, once again, thank you so much, Ingraven, for joining us. I appreciate you very much for bringing your insights to this channel for the Baltimore Ravens. One last time, hey guys, if you enjoy sitting here watching this, go check out his channel over on YouTube. Give him a follow. on all his social media. The links will be at the bottom of the description of this video. And until next time, I'm Lawrence Owen. That's Colts Loyalist. With us was Ingraven Vids. And as usual, have a good one.
Just because a player's not a household name doesn't mean we can't make him a household name.